Good evening, everybody. My apologies. I'm not able to do this live because of some personal situations. And thanks to ma'am for giving this opportunity to do it offline. So let me pull up my slide quickly. So today's topic is energy, bodies, and aura. We will be talking about energy layers or the koshas, the aura, and the chakras. None of what I'm going to be speaking right now is new. I'm just here to give language to some of the experiences that you already have. Firstly, the term energy body is a little weird to me. It sounds like a Marvel movie, this Iron Man and those kind of movies, but the Iron Man without his suit. So what I mean to say is body, body has a form and energy is formless. So if I loosely translate energy body, it can be said as a formless form, which sounds a little bit unnatural to me. And the reason why it sounds like this is, according to me, because of the Western interpretation of our spirituality, Indian spirituality, and more importantly, the limitations of the language itself, the English language itself. In the Western understanding, um, unfortunately, this is also there in our education system as well. There is always a need for an object to understand reality. There's an object and there's a structure around it. And the modern science largely looks at human beings as biological machines with organs, chemicals, neurons, and so on and so forth. And then the formless structures like the mind and the consciousness, these are a product. This is a product of the object. What is the object? The brain. So in the modern science, so we look at mind as a product or a consciousness as a product of the brain. Whereas in the spirituality, Indian spirituality, we speak about reality as a process with various functions within it, and there are layers or fields of experiences. And this is done with a deep understanding of consciousness, and we say that consciousness is always stays with or without the brain, unlike the Western understanding. And this is one of the key differentiation between both these approaches. So what this means essentially is consciousness is so fundamental in our understanding that even the brain is late to the party. So in the Vedantic structures, we describe yoga as well, and the Vedantic structure, we describe human beings as a multi-layered or a dimensional structure. Um, Let me explain this. So the physical body is looked at as the outermost layer, and that is probably the only real quote unquote body. And the other four layers, we can call it as energy functions with fields of experience. So there's a physical body and there are, four other layers behind it. We do not look at human body as and its energies just as a superficial aspect, but the energies are layered, and each layer has its own function. It has, different. It affects different dimensions of our existence in the physical plane, mental plane, emotional plane, and much deeper levels as well. For example, thought, like thought is an energy. Emotion, like say anger, fear, lust, is also an energy, and things like so. That is the concept. So if thoughts were not energy, then one negative thought would not be able to, spoil our entire day, right? But it unfortunately does. So that is the concept. So in summary, we see energy as a function. We see body as the instrument, and then consciousness is the witness, right? It is the witness that is observing the interplay between the body and the energy. So a framework was developed in the ancient times, and this goes to the oral traditions of Vedas. No one knows really how much old this is, 10,000, 20,000 years old. The framework was called the Pancha, and this is more elaborately described in the Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, where this speaks about in a written form. It is mentioned in the Taittiriya Upanishad, where a model is described which helps us to understand the human health, disease, emotions, behavior, etc., in a holistic way. So, according to this model, so there is pure consciousness, which we call as Atman, and this Atman is blinded, so to speak, by various layers, and these layers are called the koshas. And due to this, we are not able to directly experience the consciousness because it is covered by these layers. You can think of it like a light bulb, and the bulb has multiple filters, and we're not able to see the truth which is out there because of the various layers of the filter. This is also, called as Maya or the illusion. So as you move from the outermost layer to the innermost layer, the the layer becomes more subtler and subtler. So there's a gross layer, and then it becomes more subtle and subtle as you move inward. So each layer represents a particular dimension of the life. It has its own um, functions, it has its own dysfunctions, it has its own healing methods, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that humans have to evolve from the gross to the subtle. So let's go a little bit deeper on this. There are five functional layers. Annamaya Kosha, as it is called, this is the outermost layer. And the function of this is to convert nourishment to the physical organs, rather convert nourishment into physical organs. After all, what we eat is made up of earth, and so tattvas becomes an essential composition of this kosha. This is the part of the body that comes from the earth and goes back to the earth after the death, after our death. So earth element becomes an important tattva here amongst the others. Then we have the pranamaya kosha, which is called as the functional sheath of vitality or of force, life force. And this is composed of the Pancha pranas, the apana, samana, vyana, udana, and prana, and the five upapranas, naga, kurma, krikala, devadatta, and dhananjaya. Breath in this space is seen as the physical uh, gross form of the prana, and the prana itself is the subtler aspect of the breath. Then comes the Manomaya Kosha. Manomaya Kosha is the mental and the physical layer. This is composed of our thoughts, feelings, and this also includes the five Jnanendriyas, or the organs of perception, which is our eyes, ears, nose, skin, etc. And then we have the Vijnanamaya Kosha. This is the called the wisdom sheath or the intellectual sheath. This is the layer that distinguishes humans from animals. Since we have the power of discernment, or we call it as viveka, what is right and wrong, truth versus appearance, the ability to distinguish this and exercise this choice consciously and with clarity. This is known as viveka. This is different from judgment. For example, judgment will say like you're wrong. Viveka will say, interesting, let me first understand it first before I decide. So that's a distinction between Viveka and the judgment. Unfortunately, today, social media runs only by judgment and not by Viveka. Now, why is this called wisdom sheep? Without Viveka, knowledge is just information. And today, AI can do much better job than humans with just information and knowledge. But with Viveka, once you add Viveka to knowledge, then it becomes wisdom. And hence, this is called the wisdom sheath. And then the Anandamaya. Anandamaya is the innermost sheath. This is called as the bliss layer. And this is the layer closest to the Atman, or the pure consciousness. And this is the place where peace and bliss is there. Yet, this is still a temporary layer. It is not permanent until one reaches the pure consciousness. I'd like to emphasize here that here, here bliss should not be equated to pleasure or joy. There's a difference. We look at in this bliss layer as three aspects. One is called priya. Priya means pleasure. then moda, joy, and then pramoda, which is bliss. So only the pramoda or the bliss is more permanent than the other two. So when we speak about bliss in Anandamaya, we are talking about the pramoda aspect. So if we have to understand this kosha in a very simple um, way, I'd like to take an example of our hand, right? Our hand, we want to move our hand. A simple example. The hand itself is the physical aspect or the Annamaya kosha. The energy that is involved in moving the hand, so that is the pranamaya kosha. The desire to move the hand, from where the desire came that I need to move the hand, that is the manomaya kosha. And then the reasoning or the decision that is made and why exactly, the hand has to be moved, that can be, equated to the Vijnanamaya kosha. And then the sense of satisfaction after, you perform the activity with your hand, whatever satisfaction you get or the happiness that you get, that can be equated to the Anandamaya kosha. So even a simple action like moving a hand involves five different layers simultaneously, right? So that is how our human body works. And this kind of tells us that physical problems, physicality as such, the problems that arise in physical aspects rarely arise at the physical level alone. It starts much, much deeper. So next time, if someone asks you, why are you overthinking? You can just say, probably, sorry, I think all my five koshas are still working. Okay, on a lighter note. Um, I'd like to look at Pancha kosha with a few different angles. So we all understood what Pancha koshas are. We'll go a little bit deeper on Pancha kosha in the subsequent slides, but I want to look at relate Panchakosha with few other aspects that we have studied already. One is the Sharira, and the other one is the states of consciousness. What is Sharira? Sharira is not just body. We have to look at Sharira as a field of experience, right? So there are three fields of experience. One is the Sthula or the gross experience. Then there's a subtle experience, Sukshma, and then there's a Karana. And then there are three states of consciousness: the Jagrit or the wakeful state, the Swapna or the dream state, or the Sushupti or the deep sleep state. So in Jagrit Avastha, we think we are intelligent. In the Swapna Avastha, we are flying without airplanes. And then in the Sushupti Avastha, here's where we are the wisest because we are in deep sleep and we don't speak anything at all. Uh, So Annamaya Kosha is associated with the Stula Sharira, and that is in turn associated with the wakeful state. Pranamaya, Manomaya, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha is associated in the Sukshma Sharira, in the Swapna Avastha, and Anandamaya Kosha is associated with the Karana Sharira in the Sushupti Avastha. Now, you must be thinking, what is the purpose of this, mapping? As a healer, what am I going to do with this? So I feel that this can be a useful tool either for diagnosis in the initial stages, or after you diagnose, you want to map, you want to cross check with a different frame of reference. This may be a good tool. So for example, Kosha is like the software, right? It's like a software that tells you what is disturbed, right? It is, from a diagnosis standpoint, it'll tell you, what is disturbed, where is the problem appearing. Sharira is like the hardware. It tells you where to act, right? Where exactly you should intervene. What is the access level? Should we be doing it at the conscious level or the subconscious level? So at what level do you need to intervene? And then the state of consciousness is the mode, right? It tells you when it will work, right? Whether it has to work. Sorry, the Sharira, the previous one that I said, Sharira is not about the state of consciousness. It is about the type of body, in which type of body you need to intervene, whether the subtle body you need to intervene, or the gross body, or the causal body. And the state of consciousness tells you in which mode it will work. What is the timing? Whether you need to do it in a wakeful state or you need to do it in a meditative state so that it gives the maximum benefit. So this can be equated like as a phone as well, right? In the phone, you have software. So, whatever software is there, that is your Kosha. Your phone itself is your Sharira, the body of the phone and the layers within the phone. And then there are different modes in the phone. There's an airplane mode, there's a sleep mode, so on and so forth, right? Now, suppose you want to access internet, which is a software, and you want to access it in an airplane mode, which it will not work because the mode of operation is incorrect. So that is a very, simplistic view of to understand the mapping. If you want to really analyze this, diagnose this, so for example, let's take a real life example. Someone is stressed. If you're able to diagnose whether that stress is coming from either the Manomaya Kosha as the reason or the Vijnanamaya Kosha, because stress can be either because of emotions or it can also be because of intellect or because of wrong interpretation of something. Then it may not be effective to treat this type of stress at the Stula Sharira level. You have to go much more deeper, right? So this is one of the ways I feel can be useful to make sure that your diagnosis is correct. The another view of Kosha is associating this with neuroscience specifically. So the Annamaya Kosha, this corresponds to our the brain, the spinal cord, our sensory and motor cortex. We know that exercise improves the plasticity of the neurons, and diet directly affects, the way directly affects the cognition and the mood. So using the, gut-brain axis and all those concepts that we have learned. Then we have the pranamaya kosha, which can be linked to the autonomic nervous system or the vagal tone. We speak about vagal tone and heart rate variability. Vagal tone. What is vagal tone? Vagal tone means how effectively your vagus nerve is functioning. High vagal tone means that that person is able to like come back to a calmer state very easily. A low vagal tone means that he is not able to come to a calmer state very quickly, right? So heart rate variability is the another one. This is basically interval between two successive heart rates. So if your heart HRV is higher, that means that your adaptability, your heart is more adapting more to circumstances, and it can, come back to the parasympathetic balance more easily. That is what it means. So, there's a direct relationship with science, with the pranamaya kosha. Manomaya kosha, it can be associated with our limbic system, the whole system of emotional processing, and where how unresolved emotions, are affecting our physiology. Vijnanamaya kosha can be related to the prefrontal cortex, also called as metacognition in the neuroscience language. And this is where the decision making and the insight and all the other aspects come into place. Finally, the Anandamaya Kosha, and this can be equated to what the science calls as altered brain states. And this is the place where, as you know, the brain emits different types of waves like beta, alpha, gamma, theta, etc. In deep meditative states, you go to, the gamma and the theta states. So it can be directly related to those aspects. There's also a concept of a DMN. It is called the default mode network. Default mode network is basically a neuronal circuit that gets activated when our brain goes, into internal states or inward states. And in deep states in the Anandamaya level, this reaches a healthy DMN state. That is what the neuroscience says. This is a view to understand the kosha from equated with a science perspective. Then another view is the relating this with tattva, chakra, and prana, right? So Annamaya is related to the earth element, which in turn is related to the Mooladhara. and that is associated with the pranavayu. Pranamaya kosha is related to the swadhisthana, the water element, and which in turn with the apanavayu. This is more easy to understand because we know that water is essential for excretion and for urination, etc., and also for menstrual health. And apanavayu is a downward force. Then Manomaya is related to the Manipura and the Anahata, along with the fire element. And this in turn is the associated with the Samanavayu, which is responsible for the digestive fire, including all the stages of digestion, assimilation, absorption, etc. Vijnanamaya Kosha is related to Vishuddhi and the Agnya Chakra with the air element. This is the Vyanavayu relationship, which percolates, all throughout the body. And Anandamaya Kosha is related to the Sahasrara, along with the Akash element, Akash, which is present in our body. And this in turn is associated with the Udhanavayu, which is the upward Vayu. So very interestingly, in the recent, I read somewhere that there's a lot of curiosity and studies that is happening around Akash in the scientific fraternity. They are studying what is called as interstitial space, right? Interstitial space within our body. So what we call as Akash within our body. And they are now calling it as the largest organ in the body. So just a side note that this is becoming an interesting space in the scientific world. So this is just everything put in one slide. If you want to look at whatever I just spoke about in the last 10 minutes into one slide, this is how the relationship looks like. Now let's go a little bit deeper into kosha and chakra. In yoga and even in Ayurveda as well, we explain any kind of disease, a physical disease or a vyadi as a top-down process. It's a top-down process. So what do I mean by that? The issue does not start at the physical level. We've discussed this earlier as well. The issue, we now know that physical issue starts much deeper. So it first starts, it is said that it first starts at the intellect, the level of the intellect, adi, right? Turbulent intellect, which is at the Vijnanamaya Kosha level. This turbulent intellect will result in an emotional disturbance in the Manomaya level, right? And from the Manomaya level, this creates a pranic imbalance at the Pranamaya Kosha, which finally as you know, the chakras are basically manifestations are created from the pranamaya kosha. All the different chakras are created coming out of the pranamaya. You can look at it that way, as the chakras are coming out from the pranamaya kosha. And so this prana imbalance eventually affects one of our chakras, and then that in turn results in the vyadi. Vyadi, it's not just physical disease. We can interpret this as any type of issues. It can be a relationship issue, it can be a physical issue, it can be your financial issue, or it can also be spiritual issues. You're not able to spiritually uplift yourself as well because of the vyadi. So we say in Ayurveda, prajna aparade sarvaroga, means the disease begins with the error in the intellect. So which means when the problem is not in the body, the treatment is on your thinking element and not at the body level. So what is the example here? Let's take an example of one person who is probably thinking that everybody around him is the cause of his trouble. So who is around him, he feels, they're the ones causing the trouble for him. He is not the sole reason. So this may lead into some kind of jealousy or anger or ego issues. This is at the Manomaya level. And then this affects his energies. Typically this will affect in the abdominal region. So the energies gets affected, the prana gets affected in the pranamaya kosha, which results in a imbalance of the chakras. In this case, it could be a Manipura chakra, and that eventually leads to some kind of a physical problem like acidity or whatever. So basically, Kosha, you can look at it as the macro level imbalance indicators. And then the chakras goes much more deeper at the micro level indicators via the pranamaya kosha. So that's an example. The next few slides are basically a little bit of a deep dive into different koshas. I'm going to go quickly over this. So this is the Annamaya Kosha. The reasons I'm trying to in this slide in these next 5 slides, I'm trying to show a cause and effect relationship from each kosha and what it results in. So as you can see, you have the reasons, the causes of dysfunction in the Annamaya Kosha can be improper nutrition, sedentary lifestyle, which results in physical issues like obesity, chronic issues, etc., and so on and so forth. And the healing practices over here, are typically yogasanas involved with diet and also, body awareness kind of prescriptions like yoga nidra, right, wherein we are able to scan the body to give some relaxation. So this is the Annamaya Kosha. The Pranamaya Kosha is much deeper. It's because of irregular breathing patterns. Once again, sedentary lifestyles as well is involved here. We also speak about the Ida and the Pingala energy flow, the right and the left energy flows from a Nadi standpoint. And the effect of this in terms of anxiety and breath disorders and so on and so forth. The treatment of this is at the level of prana, typically using pranayama techniques. And then manomaya kosha, this can be unexamined habitual patterns or unresolved emotional impressions and many such emotional turbulence that one may have, and this results ultimately in some kind of anxiety, depression, rumination. Rumination means overthinking about the same thing, a past overthinking again and again. That is rumination. And since this is the Manomaya Kosha, you need to go much deeper and work at your subconscious level. So things like meditation will help, and mantra japa, consciously, subconsciously, trying to utter a particular sound, that will in turn heal, bring about some healing patterns. Then the Vijnanamaya Kosha, um, because of lack of proper usage of your intellect, not able to distinguish between the real and the temporary. And this will, and also not able to identify thoughts, right? Not able to observe your thoughts. These are the reasons for a defect or a dysfunction in the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And this can be healed by practices such as Swadhyaya, Yama, Niyama. You remember all the Patanjali's Ashtanga sequence. So those aspects are very much useful in the Vijnanamaya kosha level, along with the meditation and the other practices. Then you have the Anandamaya kosha, and this is basically a stage where the healing practice here involves, deep meditation, and more importantly, a sense of surrender or Ishvara Pranidhana in Patanjali's words, so that you're able to experience that level of content in your mind. So this is a brief, kind of deep dive of the different koshas. Now, how, as a healer, one question may be asked, how do I identify a client's kosha, right? How do I know? I want to do some diagnosis. How do I know whether he's operating at a particular kosha or not? So a simple example can be, let's say somebody is anxious, right? Is anxious, and he or she does not know that he's anxious, right? Many people you will come across that they're unable to recognize their own states. So he or she does not know that he's anxious, but he's operating that way. So for such people, we can kind of correlate and say that he or she is probably operating at either the Annamaya or the Pranamaya level. If a person is able to recognize that he or she is anxious, and if they can go more further and they're able to observe their thoughts and emotions as well, then we can say that he or she is operating at either at the Manomaya level or the Vijnanamaya level. So this kind of gives you a baseline to see what is the kind of the maturity level in terms of koshas of that particular person, and then you can then cater and tune your lesson plan now incorporating the related chakras corresponding to the kosha. So this is one way to use and identify the koshas. The next topic is aura. um, Aura is basically the luminous, it's called as a subtle luminous emanation outside our body. This is basically the prana, which is manifesting outside our physical body as a layer. You can call it as an electromagnetic layer that is created around all of us. We look at aura as a reflection of our physical state, mental state, emotional state, and the karmic state. Aura changes dynamically. It is not constant. It takes a lot of time to keep the aura consistent because it changes dynamically based on our thoughts and the moods. And it acts as an interface between me as an individual and the environment. So each of these auras correspond to a particular chakra. We'll talk about that. And these auras can extend from our body, starting from maybe a small half a centimeter all the way to 3 feet or even 5 feet or even more. So the strength of the aura depends on how strong our chakras and our pranas are there. So aura is not something that we possess. It is more of an expression. It is something that we express. If you want to talk about origins of aura, to the extent that I have researched, there is no direct mention of the word aura in our Indian scriptures anywhere, but it is definitely indirectly mentioned, or the concept of aura is mentioned using other words such as tejas, prabha, and various other words, basically recognizing that there is a sort of an influential field around everybody. And that is how this is to be seen. The word aura itself looks, according to me, looks to be a more recent Western development. So there are seven auras, seven layers of auras that we speak about. The first is the physical layer. This is about 1 to 2 inches from the body, typically recognized in a blue color if it's a normal positive aura, or it can be a gray or a black if it is a negative aura. This basically indicates the physical health, and this is associated with the Muladhara chakra. Then the emotional aura, this is about 3 to 4 inches from the body. The color of this aura changes depending on our moods. It is indicating emotional strength. So if you're in positive emotion, then the color will be different. Negative emotion, the color will be different. And we associate this with the Swadhisthana. And then you have the mental aura. This is 6 to 8 inches from the body, typically represented in a bright yellow color. And this indicates the mental strength. And we associate this with the Manipura chakra. Then we have the astral aura, which is about a feet from the body, typically shown in pink, green, or pastel color. And this indicates love, compassion, the strength of bonding in a person. And we associate that with the Anahata chakra. The etheric aura is about 1 to 2 feet, deep royal blue in color. And this indicates the strength of communication as well as truthfulness in a person. And we associate this with the Vishuddhi chakra. And then the celestial aura, this is about 2 to 3 feet from the body, typically indicated in a pearl white color. And this indicates our intuitive strength and all the qualities of the associated with the Agnya chakra. And then finally, we have the causal aura, which is 3 to 5 feet or more, typically represented in a golden color. And this indicates the connection with the Sahasrara chakra or the divine connection. So this is how the aura layers are indicated briefly. Now there are more interpretation of the colors, because the color, for example, red can be a brick red, it can be a dark red, light red. So there are various interpretation of these colors. These are some interpretation that I found. Now the aura identification itself takes time. It is not. It takes a lot of time and practice to first of all read and understand our own aura, and then look at others' aura as well. But what are the methods to look at aura? So there are the visual methods. You can use the finger method, two pointed fingers methods. You can use a five-finger method, or you can look at ourselves in the mirror and observe the aura. These are some methods. There are also scientific methods that have been um, found out in the recent past. There are specific instruments developed by scientists. It's called the chemical screen method, Corona, this is the CDP method, GDV. There are many more in the internet, which looks to be giving satisfactory results correlating with the actual aura that people experience, so which is a positive development in the field of science. Now, if we are not able to see the aura, because aura identification, as I said, requires a lot of skill and time. It has to be mastered. But there are other methods using which we can look at kind of gauge the energy levels of a particular person. So you can use breath as one of the indicators. You can also look at using the palms, right? Palms method. So if you keep your palm 3 to 6 inches away from the body, and then see what kind of feeling you have. If you're feeling of a warmth, coldness, heaviness, or if you feel some kind of an attraction or pulling. So each of this has different meanings. Similarly, you can also use breath, as I told, as one of the methods. See how the breathing pattern is, whether it's a shallow breathing, fast breathing, or a deep breathing, and make some calculated inferences out of it. Or you can also look at the general body posture and gesture, what kind of words that person is using. Is he or she speaking a positive language? Is changing the topics frequently? Is he or she nervous? Is the body unstable? What about the eye movement? Is a drooping shoulder, and so on and so forth. So there are various methods available. Why do we need all these things? This is useful to kind of collect as much information as possible as a healer, so that you can design your action plan or your lesson plan based on the current condition of the client. So that is what this is about. As I said, aura is not constant. They are influenced by many factors, your stability of the emotions, what belief systems we have, what level of pranas are there in the body, how balanced are our chakras, the karmic patterns, and so on and so forth. And these patterns, these influences, creates what is called as a resonance field. It can be a high resonance field or a low resonance field. So high resonance field means that the person is more balanced, more influential, more attractive. Low balance means that the person is typically restless and having some negative energies. There are also methods to clean the aura, just like how body can be cleaned. Body is a manifestation of our five elements, and aura is a manifestation of the energies inside our body. So it can be cleansed. It's called the Klesha Nashana. You can use the tattvas itself to cleanse the aura using Agni, Vayu, water, and earth. There are specific material as well, like the salt, the rock salt, that can be used also to clean. If you want to go something more deeper and more subtle, you can use mantras and japas with the proper intention to do the cleansing. You can also lock the auras so that the auras are not influenced by the negative energies whenever you're performing some activities. So the last topic is we spoke about aura from a human standpoint until now. Aura can also be detected. It's not just for humans, it can be detected for objects as well. So, you have same type of colors. You can also place the arms, your arms, and then feel the energies. There are also another method called the Rudraksh, using which you can sense the kind of energy, whether it's a positive energy or the negative energy, by using the Rudraksh as a tool to do it, to find out the energy levels. I did a lot of experiments on this previously, and I kind of documented some of these experiments here, using like vegetables, mainly vegetables is what I used. The summary of these experiments is that we see that yes, objects have these auras, but how we treat the object matters a lot, because our affirmations, if you give a positive affirmation, then the object behaves differently. If you give a negative affirmation, then the object behaves differently, and this is proven as well. You can all try it out. I think that is why in our tradition, cooking food was given utmost importance, right? The person who is cooking, is recommended that he or she be of a balanced mindset, because whatever thoughts that person is going through, or whatever he or she is going through, is directly imparted into the food, and that affects the person who is consuming it. So that's why we say that in the ancient text, that don't cook when you're angry. This is not because we will burn the food, because we are already burning. So don't cook while you're cooking. So finally, to conclude my presentation, this was just an attempt to show the interactions of the functions of energies via the Panchakosha model, its relationship with the chakras, tattva, prana, sharira, state of consciousness. I try to see if we can bring about some kind of a logic. Of course, all this is, looking at internet and listening to multiple people. Aura, we spoke about aura and its effects and how it relates to chakras. And also we spoke about how all these concepts, philosophical concepts, compares with science. So as a healer, I can say that true healing is not just about fixing the parts or fixing the issue. It is about trying to restore the harmony across the various layers and the auras. So the understanding of Panchakosha and the aura gives us a tool or a framework, not just for healing, but also for a conscious living. So to conclude, yoga is not rejecting science. Yoga completes science. Yoga is basically asking, who is experiencing all this? And that is a key question that yoga is asking. Thank you, and I look forward for your feedback.